When morning arrives and the world is still wrapped in silence, that sacred moment becomes your chance to meet yourself again. Before the noise of daily life floods your senses, before obligations pull you in every direction, you are alone with your breath, your thoughts, and your inner voice. In that fragile beginning lies the power to shape your entire day. But sadly, most people miss it. They wake up already in a rush, reaching for their phones, letting the outside world speak first. And just like that, they surrender the most important gift they have: the power to choose how their inner world begins. Your first words in the morning are not meaningless. They are the foundation of your mental space. If those words carry doubt, fear, comparison, or regret, they will echo throughout your choices, your emotions, your energy. But if your first words are rooted in strength, clarity, and intention, your day will reflect those very qualities. You don't need a complicated ritual. You don't need loud motivation. You need only one decision: to be deliberate. So ask yourself, what are the first words you say when you wake up? Are they complaints, worries, or are they words you've consciously chosen to remind you who you truly are? Your mind is not neutral in the morning. It's open like fertile soil, waiting for the first seed, and what you plant in those first few moments will grow. Those who walk the path of mastery know to speak something powerful at the beginning of the day is to reclaim authority over your own life. Most people live their lives reacting to the outside world, chasing, comparing, worrying, without ever realizing that true power begins from within. What you say to yourself when you first wake up is not a habit to overlook. It is a sacred act. It sets the tone for your mind, your emotions, and your energy throughout the day. If your first thoughts are careless or scattered, your actions will follow the same path. But if your first words are spoken with clarity and awareness, then you are already leading yourself before the world has a chance to influence you. You don't need to shout affirmations or force positivity. You simply need to choose your first words with intention. Words like, "I am calm and grounded. My energy belongs to me. Today, I move with clarity and purpose." These aren't just comforting phrases. They are declarations. You are not asking for permission to feel good. You are deciding here and now the energy you will carry into your day. This is why monks rise before the sun, not because it's easy, not because it's trendy, but because they understand. A chaotic start cannot lead to a peaceful life. A scattered mind leads to scattered actions, but a centered mind, guided by clarity, becomes the foundation of strength. So when the morning comes and your eyes open, take that moment to breathe, not out of routine, but out of reverence. Say something to yourself, not out of obligation, but from a place of deep presence. Speak words that bring you back to your center with the voice of someone who respects themselves. Because that's what morning truly is. A return to self, a return to truth, a return to discipline. And every day, life gives you that sacred chance again. Self-mastery does not begin with controlling the outside world. It begins with understanding what arises within. Before you can guide your life, before you can lead others, you must first learn to observe yourself with honesty, with patience, and without judgment. Each morning, as you open your eyes, you stand at a quiet threshold. In that moment, before the demands of the world arrive, you are offered a rare opportunity to witness your own mind, your own emotions, your own thoughts. What are you feeling? What thoughts are visiting your mind today? Are they helpful? Or are they merely habits that have been repeated for so long they feel like truth? To observe does not mean to fix. To observe does not mean to control. It simply means to see clearly and gently what is happening within you. And in that seeing, something powerful begins to shift. You create space between what you feel and how you respond. In that space, there is choice. In that choice, there is freedom. Most people move through life obeying their thoughts like commands. I'm not good enough. This day will be hard. I don't feel like trying. But when you observe, you don't follow those thoughts. You simply watch. And from that awareness, you decide, what will I carry forward? What will I release? This is not weakness. This is strength. The strength to no longer be ruled by emotion, by habit, or by fear. So as your day begins, say to yourself, I observe what is within me. Say it not to control, but to understand. Say it not to react, but to choose with wisdom. Because in that quiet act of witnessing, you begin to reclaim your inner authority. And that is where transformation truly begins. The moment you choose to observe your inner world, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You are no longer a prisoner of your thoughts. Most people live on autopilot. One thought appears, I'm tired, I'm not enough, I can't do this. And they immediately follow it. Not because it's true, but because they've never questioned it. They mistake emotion for direction, confusion for identity. But the one who observes, watches, and through watching, they awaken. They begin to see how thoughts rise and fall like waves, how emotions change like weather, and most importantly, they discover that they are not those waves, they are the ocean beneath. This is the power of morning stillness. In the quiet, you notice what usually goes unnoticed. How tension builds in your body. How fear disguises itself as logic. How old patterns try to repeat themselves again. But you are not those patterns. You are the one who sees them. And in seeing, you are free to choose differently. So when anger arises, you say, I see you. When doubt whispers, you say, I see you. When joy visits, you say, I see you too. You observe without clinging, without resisting, just presence. This is how you begin to lead yourself, not by force, but by awareness. True strength is not about suppressing emotion. It's about not being ruled by it. It's about recognizing the storm without losing your balance. So each morning, before you speak to the world, speak to yourself. Not to fix, not to criticize, but to simply witness with kindness and courage. Say it softly, but with certainty. Let me see what is moving inside me. And from that gentle seeing, a quieter, stronger self will begin to emerge. Not built by reaction, but by presence. That is the path of mastery. Mastery does not come from the absence of emotion. It comes from not being ruled by it. Every morning you are given the chance to return to your center, to notice, to breathe, and to choose presence over noise. But most people forget. They open their eyes and rush into the world, pulled by tasks, messages, and urgency. Their energy is scattered before they've even stood up. But not you. You are learning to return each morning, not to perfection, but to intention. The act of sitting quietly for a few minutes, breathing gently, and speaking to yourself with kindness is not small. It is a sacred discipline. It is where your foundation is rebuilt, one breath at a time. You don't need to silence your emotions or pretend to be fearless. You only need to remember, you are the witness, and the witness is steady, calm, aware. When you rise in the morning and choose not to grab your phone, when you choose not to let the world speak first, when you sit and ask yourself, what am I feeling today? What thoughts are pulling at me? You are reclaiming power. Power not over others, but within. This isn't weakness. This is mastery. The quiet kind that doesn't shout but transforms from the inside out. The world may not see it. No one may applaud it. But you will feel it in the way you move, in the way you respond, in the way your presence steadies the room. So every morning, speak to yourself as someone you respect, not with judgment, but with reverence. And let the first words of your day be a return, not to pressure, but to presence. A gentle remembrance. I am the one who watches, and from that awareness, I rise. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many see it as restriction, as punishment, as something cold and rigid. But true discipline is none of those things. In its highest form, discipline is love, self-respect, expressed through action. It is not something imposed from the outside. It is a choice you make for yourself over and over again because you know who you are and who you are becoming. Every morning, when the comfort of sleep tries to pull you back, when your mind whispers, just 5 more minutes, you are not fighting the world, you are facing yourself. And in that moment, you are given a sacred opportunity to either fall back into habit or rise with intention. This is where character is forged, not in the spotlight, not when it's easy, but in those quiet, internal battles you fight when no one is watching. So when you rise, speak to yourself, not to scold, but to guide. Say, discipline is my freedom. Because real freedom is not doing whatever you feel like. Real freedom is the strength to act according to your deepest values, even when your feelings resist. Discipline aligns your actions with your purpose. It builds the bridge between your dreams and your reality. Every small act of discipline, waking early, moving your body, choosing focus, strengthens the trust between you and yourself. And when you trust yourself, you become unshakable. This is why monks live with rhythm, why they train daily, not because they crave difficulty, but because they've discovered a secret. That structure liberates. That commitment empowers. So each morning, when comfort calls and resistance rises, remember, discipline is not harsh. It is the most tender form of care for your future self. Say it gently, but with strength. I am worth the effort. I am worth the structure. Discipline is how I love myself today. Each morning is a quiet invitation, not to ease or comfort, but to grow. And growth never arrives dressed in convenience. It shows up as resistance, as discomfort, as challenge. The question is never whether life will test you. It always will. The question is, will you be ready to meet that test not with fear, but with presence? If you wish to walk the path of mastery, you must transform your relationship with challenge. Stop seeing it as an enemy. Start treating it as your greatest teacher. When you rise, before the world lays its weight on your shoulders, say to yourself, I welcome challenge as my training. These are not just words. They are armor, the mindset of a quiet warrior. Most people retreat the moment things get difficult. They avoid discomfort. They search for the easiest way. But in doing so, they also retreat from their own strength. Because strength is not built in ease. Like muscles need resistance to grow, your mind needs difficulty to become unshakable. Challenge reveals what is untrained in you, where your discipline cracks, where your ego speaks louder than your wisdom. So when the day tests you through delays, difficult people, emotional storms, don't say, why me? Ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? This is how monks train, not for spectacle, but for sharpening, not to avoid the storm, but to remain centered in it. You don't need a battlefield to prove your strength. Life is your training ground. Every frustration, every fear, every resistance is an invitation to be still, to breathe, to respond with clarity. Say it with breath. Say it with your spine straight. I welcome challenge as my training. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. And in that choice, you become more than reactive. You become responsible. You become refined. You become free. There is a common misunderstanding in today's world that mastery is born from inspiration, from emotion, from fleeting motivation. But the truth is much quieter, much deeper. Mastery is not created by how you feel, but by what you repeat. Repetition is the hidden force behind transformation. It doesn't depend on mood or excitement. It depends on intention practiced daily, lived consistently, honored in silence. Each morning, when you wake, you may not feel strong. You may not feel clear. You may not even feel ready. That's exactly when the ritual matters most. You don't speak powerful words to yourself because you already feel powerful. You speak them to remind yourself of who you are becoming. And through repetition, you begin to believe not by chance but by design. Say it. I am disciplined. I am focused. I master myself. Let these words echo, not just in your thoughts, but in your breath, in your steps, in your choices. Not once, not twice, every day. Because repetition is the language your subconscious understands. It is how new pathways are built. It is how a new self emerges. The monk does not meditate only when it feels good. The martial artist does not train only when inspired. They do it because it is their path. Because every repetition is a sharpening. Every step is a remembering. So when your mind resists, when your body feels heavy, when no one is watching, do it anyway. That is the moment your training begins. Not in loud declarations, but in quiet discipline. You don't need to shout. You only need to show up, again and again. Because each morning, in the stillness before the world stirs, you are not performing. you are becoming. And the self you're building, rooted in discipline, anchored by repetition, is unshakable. Not because life is easy, but because you are steady. This is the ancient wisdom. Do not wait for emotion to lead. Let repetition build the one you're meant to be. You don't need the world's permission to become strong. You need your own. And you give that permission not through loud words, but through quiet repetition, through showing up each day, especially when it's hardest. Each morning is not just a beginning. It is your sacred dojo, your inner sanctuary, not made of walls, but of breath, presence, and intention. This is where mastery is born. Not in chaos, but in calm. Not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of devotion. When you speak to yourself each day, I am disciplined, I am focused, I master myself. You're not reciting affirmations, you are declaring your identity. You are shaping your reality. And over time, the gap between who you are and who you are becoming begins to close. But you must return, again and again, even when you feel tired, even when motivation fades, because that's when the roots grow deepest beneath the surface, quietly, invisibly. Discipline is not about rigidity. It is about remembrance. Each time you repeat your morning practice, you remind yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. I am the one who chooses what to follow. And from that choosing, you reclaim power, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stands firm when life trembles. Most people wait for circumstances to shift before they begin, but you begin, and let that beginning shift your circumstances. You rise not for applause, not for perfection, but because you've chosen this path. So do not wait for clarity to come from the outside. Let your discipline become the voice that calls you forward. One breath, one step, one sacred repetition at a time. And in doing so, you will not just walk the path of mastery, you will become the path. The moment you wake, something invisible begins to stir, subtle yet powerful. Before your feet touch the floor, before your mouth speaks, before the weight of the world enters your awareness, a force has already begun to shape your day. That force is focus. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. This is not just philosophy. It is the physics of your inner life. Whatever you direct your thoughts toward in those first quiet minutes will color the rest of your day. Most people don't realize this. They wake and immediately hand their energy away to distraction, to noise, to comparison. Their first thoughts are scattered, so their day becomes scattered. Their attention is divided, so their strength is diluted. But you are learning to reclaim that power, to bring your focus home. Imagine your mind as a clean mirror in the morning. Whatever you reflect in it first becomes the frame through which you see the entire day. If the first thing is fear or stress, the mind bends in that direction. But if the first is calm, breath, and clarity, then peace becomes your starting point. So ask yourself not just, what am I doing today? But, where am I giving my life force? Because focus is life. Every moment spent worrying, comparing, reacting, it costs you energy. And yet most people give that energy away without care, like water leaking from a jar, but not you. You are learning to guard your focus, to protect your energy, to become intentional. So each morning, before the world demands anything from you, say, "Today, my energy will go where I decide." Not where fear pulls, not where chaos shouts, but where purpose lives. This is not just a mantra, it is your vow to yourself, to walk through the noise with clarity, to live your day with inner sovereignty. This is the discipline of focus, and it begins in the quiet, before the world begins.